Right.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So today we have Tiffany Gregorich, and I'm super excited for you guys to get to know her. She has some amazing testimony, stories, and she's an awesome person, and I thought it would be beneficial for you guys to meet her today. So Tiffany, start with telling us, what is your testimony?
Okay, so I am an NSAM certified personal trainer. I'm a group personal trainer and a performance enhancement specialist. I've worked for the Department of Defense, and I've also worked at like big box gyms like Gold's Gym. I've spent I definitely have, so I have my favorite type of client, but I spent a lot of my career like focusing on working with every kind of person because I really want that hands-on approach. Like, so I don't have that one size fits all, like clients kind of training mindset, I guess. So it's kind of my background and my experience, I guess.
So what about your own personal testimony? What are things that you've dealt with?
So I actually was diagnosed with PCOS when I was younger. And PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's a hormonal disorder that affects women. The physical symptoms are like excessive weight gain and acne. And then you have like the invisible symptoms, which are like depression and anxiety. And also women who struggle with PCOS are more prone to developing eating disorders. So I was diagnosed with PCOS. I ended up weighing close to 250 pounds. And I myself also struggled with depression, and I struggled with an eating disorder. I kind of felt like no one understood where I was coming from. I tried reaching out to like personal trainers or, doing all that Googling. You fall down the rabbit hole of like fad diets and overtraining and all that good stuff. So I fell down the rabbit hole of like calorie deficit, which is what everybody preaches. They're like, oh, calorie deficit's always weight loss. So I tried the cutting carbs and the cutting sugars and all of that stuff. And eventually I just kind of like honed in on like the calorie deficit. And that's when I developed my eating disorder because I didn't feel comfortable in my body. I'd gained a lot of weight. I felt super sluggish and tired all the time. So it got to the point where I was kind of like surviving on one protein shake a day because I was like, at least I know I'm in a calorie deficit, and doing hours and hours on the treadmill, and it didn't seem to be working. And so I remember specifically, like I passed out one day, and I'm not sure what clicked after that, but I was like, okay, I don't care about looking a certain way. I don't care about like weighing a certain amount. Like I just need to be healthy. I want to feel better. I want to feel good in my body, but not like, to a certain standard. So I started just like making minor changes to my diet, and I started doing things in the gym that I actually loved to do versus spending hours on the treadmill. So when I actually started focusing on like me as a whole person and not just like, oh, this many pounds or like this many inches, that's when things kind of all started to click. And that's when I lost 90 pounds, and I felt amazing because I wasn't, I was feeling my body the correct way. I was doing things in the gym that I loved doing. So I didn't feel like it was work to go. And that's kind of what led me into becoming a personal trainer, because I felt like I wanted to be the person that I wish I had when I first started like my journey in fitness.
Yes, that's such a great testimony. That's why I really thought that the listener should hear that, because, I've been in the industry since 2007, and I too have a weight loss testimony, but everybody's so different.
Yeah.
And to hear like how you did it and how I did it, they're pretty much the same way, but in our own ways.
Yeah.
And you're right. You have to learn how to fuel your body. And that's something that is probably the hardest part of our jobs, is teaching. Yes. And making people understand food's not your enemy. It's actually your fuel.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's amazing. And it's so hard to lose that weight. So I am so proud of you. as well. I mean, I know, and it's still a struggle every day, no matter how long it's been. You still have to do those things, you know, you
Yeah,
still have to stick
absolutely.
to it. And yeah, and so um, that's what I was going to ask you. Can you tell me what is something that you personally are doing currently in your own fitness routine?
Okay, so I actually have taken up yoga, which is something that I never thought I would do because when I first started getting into working out, the thing that I loved the most was lifting heavy things and putting them back down. I don't know what it was about the just like great feeling of moving up in your PRs and things like that and like lifting something really heavy and then just, putting it back on the ground. That was my thing. And anytime like one of my friends would be like, let's go to yoga, let's do yoga. I was like, why would I do yoga? That's not something I'm interested in at all. But I started doing yoga because I felt like I wasn't getting the most out of my workouts. I was getting like super sore afterwards, no matter how much I rested or stretched or like recovered via nutrition. I just felt like I was super sore the next day and I couldn't get a good workout. So I finally caved in. I was like, all right, I'll try this yoga thing. And I love it. I think it's like the best way to recover because I don't feel like the super sore the next day. I don't feel tight. I feel nice and like relaxed when I do yoga. It's great.
It is. I agree. You know, I do Pilates, but yoga, there's a lot of similar moves in yoga. It's just done a little differently. But yoga is, I know a lot of people think it's easy, but I took a yoga class, and this is a true story. I went to a friend of mine as a yoga instructor. She knew I was a Pilates instructor, and this was a couple of years ago. And I went to this class. Nobody knew who I was but her. And I'm in the back of the class, and there's a big mirror in front. And I could not do it. Like I was struggling so bad. And I was mad, but I was also embarrassed because I'm like, I
Yep.
do Pilates. I've been doing Pilates, but yoga is hard, but it is
It's a
so good
whole
for your
ball
body.
game.
Yeah. And I've seen people actually tone and chisel their body
Yeah.
better with yoga. So that's interesting. I'm glad I asked you that because I've always wanted to ask that myself. And I thought about it and I was like, I bet you these listeners are going to want to know that, you know,
Yeah.
what she does. So what type of clients do you like to help? I mean, name some of your favorite niches.
Okay, so like I said, I've really spent like my whole career making sure I can work with every kind of person and getting that one-on-one with different types of clients because I like to be able to personalize my programs like very well. But I would say my favorite types of clients, I like the people who are just really like they want to enjoy the journey. I don't really have a specification on if it's like weight loss or weight gain or a certain type like sport specific. I just love the clients that make me passionate about like what they're passionate about because they want to experience the journey. They want a lifestyle change, they want sustainability, they want to be the best version of themselves rather than the version that everybody says they should be. And like that's what I love is being able to look at someone and be like, I can tell that you're enjoying like your these changes and I'm loving it. So that I would say that's my niche is like just people who are passionate about the lifestyle change and not quick fixes, fad diets.
Yes, and that is why you fit so perfect with our team. Our whole team is that way. We just, I mean, we just want to help people and we want them to change their lives, not just do it for 4 weeks and then
Yeah.
go, back and forth with it, that yo-yo dieting or that
Yes.
yo-yo, plan. So what tips would you give to people that are listening on how to eat nutritional?
So my biggest tip is to not don't over restrict yourself. So fad diets are typically they ask you to cut out carbs or they ask you to completely cut out sugars or only eat this many calories. And in my experience, when you over restrict yourself, whether it's labeling foods as good or bad or restrict like I can't have more than this many calories a day, that's when you're more prone to binging on those bad foods later. And it's not sustainable, because once you reach your goal, you're like, oh, thank goodness I can go eat an entire bag of Doritos now. And then we're falling back. So just don't over restrict yourself. Eat the way that you're willing to eat in the long run, so you can sustain those goals when you get there. And another really big point I like to hit with people, eating disorders are they're talked about a lot. Everybody talks about eating disorders, like, oh, you don't eat, you eat too much, whatever. But nobody talks about disordered eating patterns. And when you over restrict yourself and then you go into that kind of binging on those bad foods later, you're actually in the a similar cycle as an eating disorder, because your eating is disordered. You're not fueling your body the way you're supposed to, or the way it deserves to be fueled. And you're just kind of getting yourself in this really weird, like you said, yo-yo, where you're doing so good for 2 days because you don't eat any sugar, you don't eat any carbs, you don't eat any junk food. And then after that, day 3 comes, you had a long day and you're like, I just want all the foods that are bad for me. So my biggest tip is everything in moderation. There's no such thing as a bad food. Like, eat what you want, just portion control. And yeah, I think that's it. Just the whole over.
I agree with you. I always tell people, you know, the good Lord put food on this earth for a reason, because I
Yes.
love to eat. I love to eat, whether it's bad food or good food. And people look at me and they're like, you don't eat bad. And I'm like, no, I do. Like, I
Oh, I
am
do.
human. Yeah, we're human, but to me, it's not bad food. And people get
Yeah.
that confused, like good or bad. Yes, there's better foods for you than
Yeah.
others, but just because you're eating pizza, because you want a piece of pizza at your kid's birthday party,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means
Exactly.
that that day you're going to eat that way. And then, you know, the next meal, you're going to make a better choice. It's just how it is. So, and like you
Exactly.
said, it's moderation. And I completely agree with you. And I can't stress that enough. That was perfectly said. Perfectly said.
Thank
So,
you.
um, next thing is I know that people are going to want to know, if someone came to you with PCOS, what is the first tip you would give them? Because people deal with this more than anyone realizes, and it's very difficult for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of touched on it a little in the beginning, but when it comes to PCOS, it's a lot more than just like, oh, your hormones are a little crazy. When I talk about weight gain, I'm talking an excessive amount of weight. When I'm talking about like acne, depression, these are all very extreme, and nobody really talks about PCOS that much. In fact, it took so long for me to get diagnosed because the symptom, it's just not talked about. It's not very widely known. So when it comes, if somebody came to me and they had PCOS, I would say you're not alone, for one. It's not talked about enough. It feels very lonely because not a lot of people are open to that discussion or have ever even heard of PCOS. My biggest piece of advice is to give yourself some grace. You're strong, you're beautiful, you're worth it. Change is not going to come overnight. And it may seem out of reach, especially when you struggle so much with feeling like you you're not even yourself because you gained so much weight and now you're feeling very sad and things like that. So the change may seem like it's just way too far off, but when you start loving yourself, and you start loving yourself as you do the people that you care about, and you start treating yourself with the same amount of grace that you treat with other people that you love, that's when you're going to change more than just numbers on a scale. And so my biggest advice is give yourself grace, love yourself, and do what you think is best for you. Don't listen to, those fad diets were like, oh, if you have PCOS, you have to cut out all grains and all dairy and all this, and you have to eat 1,200 calories a day to make sure that you stay in a deficit. You need to fuel your body. You need to love yourself, and just know that you're worth so much more than numbers on a scale. Just start treating yourself as you would treat somebody else that you love, and that's when you're going to start seeing the change, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with you, because it is hard. And you know, the emotional part of it is sometimes worse than anything.
Yeah.
In my opinion, from what I've seen professionally, because of the fact that, they know they need to lose weight, but they're
Mhm.
having trouble losing weight. They don't feel good. They
Yeah.
have a lot of actual health issues that come along with PCOS. Plus
Mhm.
they're depressed because they're not happy with their looks or their life,
Yep.
or and they don't know where to start. So, that, and a lot of people feel very lonely in
Yeah.
that I call it that group of people, because it's a large
Yeah.
group of people, but they do feel lonely, and they need to know that they're not alone. And, look what you did. You have PCOS and you lost all that weight, and it's not, like you said, I mean, it's not easy. It's not like we're just saying it's super easy. It's
Yeah.
hard, but you're worth it. So like, if you just stick to it and have that long-term goal of, I'm just going to work on feeling better,
Yeah,
making myself,
exactly.
making myself happy. And so I agree with you on that. I think that's
That's
great.
the whole thing for me is like when I say treat yourself as if you like as you treat the people that you love, you would never go to your friend or your mom or your sister or your brother and say, you need to stop eating sugar, you need to stop eating carbs, you need to lose this much weight in this amount of time. You know, look at yourself and say, hey, I want to be the best version of me. So I'm going to fuel my body the way it deserves. I'm going to eat the things that I love to eat. I'm going to do physical activity that I enjoy doing, not just what somebody told me that I need to do. I'm not going to spend hours on a treadmill because I need to look a certain way. I'm going to go to this class, or I'm going to lift these weights, or I'm going to things that you love to do because it will make you happier as a person. And that's when changes start to happen, when you stop treating yourself like your own worst enemy, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does, very much so. And I'm sure that most of the listeners will agree. Whether they have PCOS or not, what you just said covers a lot of things, really, honestly. So I appreciate that, and appreciate you taking the time today to visit
Yeah.
with me. And if you guys that are listening would like more information on training with Tiffany, you can go to www.warriorwellnessfitnessstudio.com, and we can set up a pre-qualification call. So I hope you guys all have a great day. Thank you.